Empire of the Sun, a band created in the early 2000s, which would go on to get double platinum certified in their very first album, and would go on to be remixed and sampled by big name artists like Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa. But despite this, essentially no one knows of this band. So, this is the story of Empire of the Sun.
Walking on a dream. How can I explain? Talking to myself.
We start our journey in the early 2000s with Nick Littlemore and Luke Steely both signed and working at EMI Records. The two would work on multiple different projects over the years, but would eventually have somewhat of a falling out. Now, jump all the way to the Sprite year of 2006, and both would rekindle their relationship to work on the Puna album titled Puna. The two would collaborate on 2 tracks for the album titled Freedom and With You Forever. And I want to talk about With You Forever specifically because this proved 2 things. Number 1, that Nick Littlemore and Luke Steely could work together and work well together. Secondly, it proved that they understand they have a certain sound and a certain profile that they bring to the table whenever they do collaborate. Then the next year, the Puna album would be released and it would get the attention of Elton John, which would, in 2021, Elton John and Puna would work together on Cold Heart. But back in 2007 at EMI Records, the two would be working on a secret project codenamed Steelmore. The two would write songs separately and would occasionally meet to talk about direction and stylistic decisions for the album. But at the very end of 2007 marked the creation and start of production, really, of Walking on a Dream, their debut album. Then in 2008, on August 30th, the two would release the title track for the Walking on a Dream album titled Walking on a Dream.
Walking on a dream. How can I explain? Talking to myself. Will I see again? We are always running for the thrill of it, thrill of it. Always pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it. All along we are calling out now to get.
And this would top the charts at number 10 in Australia on the ARIA single charts. Then on September 30th, they would release We Are the People, which would go on to top the charts at number 24 in Australia. Then, on October 30th, the album would be released just in Australia though, peaking at number 6 on the ARIA album charts, which is pretty good for Australia. Then, in 2009, the band would go on an international promotional tour for their album. The album would be released in Europe in February, and then America the following April. They then made a 3rd single titled Standing by the Shore, which would release in June. At the end of 2009, the band had received multiple different awards for Walking on a Dream, including Best Album of the Year in Australia. Then in 2010, the band would perform all around the world. We Are the People was used in a Vodafone TV commercial, which I'm not 100% sure what that is. I think it's like Instagram. It's some type of social media. We Are the People would eventually top the charts in Germany because of this commercial. So, hey, you got that. Then in November, Nick Littlemore announced that they were working on a new album. And now the year is 2011. July marked the start of production for their new album. Then we jump to 2013 where the band would release a teaser for their new album called Ice on the Dune, setting the release date for sometime in June of 2013. They also released the lead single for the album titled Alive on April 16th. Then the Pharrell brothers announced that Empire of the Sun would be doing the soundtrack for Dumb and Dumber 2. And this is literally some of their best work. And it came from such a horrible movie. It's so good. They made 2 new singles for this movie titled Tonight and Wandering Star. And it perfectly encapsulates the music that Empire of the Sun makes. Both songs have loud thrashing drums along with synth-like vocals all put together in a fun, upbeat melody. I mean, just give it a listen.
Wandering stars, my fade away, but you know that the sun is here to stay. I'll be the weather to you, 'cause you walk the line between sugar and divine.
And because these songs were attached to this movie that obviously absolutely bombed at the box office, not many people know about these songs because they weren't released on any other album that isn't the soundtrack for Dumb and Dumber 2, which is very sad. But back to Empire of the Sun, on June 14th, the album would release worldwide and would have a lackluster performance and not getting the sales or the listens it really needed to. Then in an interview, Nick Steely compared Ice on the Dunes to Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, saying that, quote, they had a great marketing campaign, but we have better songs. And Ice on the Dunes is a good album, and I am a huge Empire of the Sun fan, obviously, but Random Access Memories by Daft Punk is one of the greatest albums of all time, period. Like, I am a huge Daft Punk fan because of Random Access Memories, and to say that Ice on the Dunes is better is just wrong. I mean, again, great music, totally worth the listen, but it's definitely not better than Daft Punk's Random Access Memories. Then in 2015, the band would start writing and recording their new album, mainly recording in Hawaii and writing in Los Angeles. This album would be called Two Vines, and you can definitely see the almost tropical Hawaiian jungle influences, at least in the album cover and the music videos that came out for this album, which will become a constant with Empire of the Sun, going around to different places, recording an album and having somewhat of an influence on that album's production and the sounds that album will convey. Then in 2016, Walking on a Dream would be used in a Honda Civic commercial titled The Dreamer. This would be a breakthrough for Empire of the Sun and Walking on a Dream, where it would hit number 3 on alternative music chart, hit the top of the dance music chart, and hit number 40 in mainstream music. Then on August 24th, they released the lead single titled High Low. Then they would release the album worldwide. Go to 2017, and Steely announced in an interview that they're working on their next album. This album is mainly written and recorded in Japan. Then DS Automotives would have a commercial with an exclusive Empire of the Sun song titled On Our Way Home. But in 2021, this little thing happened called COVID-19. It kind of shut down the entire world. And during a podcast interview, Nick Littlemore said, "We struggle so much with Zoom writing, and it's always been such an in-the-room kind of tangible band, where you sort of run on the spirit of what's happening." But then later on in the interview, he would go on to reassure fans that work is being done. Then in 2022, Luke Steely would make a solo studio album titled Listening to the Water. water. I personally don't really like it. It's not really my thing, especially when I know that Luke Steely can make amazing music, and I'm not a big fan. It's a lot slower, and I can understand wanting to do something a little different than the upbeat, almost EDM dance music that he's usually used to making, but I just don't really think it's that good, and neither does most people because the album hasn't really performed very well. And this just about brings us up to present day. So what does the future look like for Empire of the Sun? And I'll be honest, it doesn't look like a very bright future. Each time the band releases a new album, it's met with lackluster performance, getting less and less sales and less views each time. And I honestly don't know how much longer they can keep this up. Their Instagram is relatively active, and it does seem like they go on tour and play live multiple times a year in Australia, so maybe I don't hear much about the band because I live in the States, but Nick Littlemore and Luke Steely have never really had a super strong relationship, so I can kind of almost sense a falling out coming up in the future, especially with their struggles with writing this new album. So if you have any takeaway from this video, it's that you should just go out and listen to more Empire of the Sun, because they honestly make fantastic music, and they do not get enough recognition for how good they truly are. There's a link to a playlist down below, and it's kind of my compilation of the best Empire of the Sun songs, and I would highly recommend. It's not for everyone, not everyone enjoys this type of music, but I feel like almost anyone can get behind it to some extent, at least Walking on a Dream. So once again, thank you so much for watching and listening, and go listen to some Empire of the Sun.